Welcome everybody.
How are you?
Hello indeed. Welcome. Thank you all so much for coming here once again. And welcome, friends, to Parting the Veil, the show where we pull back the curtain and give you a behind-the-scenes look at your favorite content creators. I am your host, Hedron Ferry, and today we have a wonderful mythical guest today, somebody of a persuasion that I am fascinated by. No, not for that reason. And allow me to have the pleasure to introduce you to GMStarson. Welcome. How are you doing today?
I am doing fine, Ethan. It's great to be on the show.
I'm glad to have you. This is the first time we've had, we'll say, somebody of your complexion joining us today.
You don't find too many green people, I do suppose, but as a great philosopher once said, it's not easy being green.
That is very, very true. So, well, to start off, would you like to go ahead and give us a brief introduction about who you are and what you do?
Certainly. Hello, everyone. My name is GMStarson. I'm your Consentacle Frientacle Tentacle Monster. I'm here to inspire folks to have a good time in adult content. And when I say adult content, I mean content for adults, whether that be scary, violence, sexy, whatever it may be. Just, we're not family friendly here.
Fair enough. Well, then the first thing I may ask, if that's okay, is as far as that branding goes, as far as everything quote-unquote adult content, I'm super curious. Aside from some of the more, we'll say, Twitch-unfriendly topics, what kind of stuff in general would you say you do? Like, what can we expect to see from you from a day-to-day basis, let's say?
So when you find me here on Twitch, for example, you're most likely to find me playing indie horror games, and particularly anything I can get my hand on that's experimental. I love finding those weird art pieces that end up being just an absolute game changer to play. And I love just delving into, what's the word I'm looking for? Sort of the lit critique of video games, for lack of a better way of putting it. And sometimes I end up watching some shows or things and doing the same thing. But most of the time, it's scary, spooky video games and the occasional D&D. Well, Pathfinder. I'm always Pathfinder 2e.
Fair.
TTRPG in general. Gaming focus. Though, again, mostly it's horror on Twitch because that's what I can get away with.
Fair enough. It's on brand, it looks like.
There are plenty of good horror to be found, especially those deep down in the ocean.
I can see that. Wow, terribly sorry. Have there been any hidden gems that you've come across recently that you'd like to share?
Oh, goodness. So hidden gem wise, there was one that I just if you're a fan of roguelike games, I found one recently. There's a demo out now for Clean Fall is what it's called.
Clean
And
Fall.
it is a really fun little sort of if you took Splunky and spliced it with Noita and then gave it a anime uwu slash Lovecraftian weirdness vibe.
Huh. There's a Fooly Cooly joke
You
in here
play.
somehow.
Oh, there are several. You play as a robotic maid who has been who has decided that she is going to clean up the planet to fix it because, if the planet's ruined, then the cleaning will never be done. The the problem is that as she digs down deep to find out the source of all the horrible things that are causing the planet to go awry, uh, there are bad things down below.
As there tend to
You
be.
got to clean it up.
All right. So, what did you say it was?
So
Clean
that
Fall?
Clean Fall.
Clean
I
Fall.
also just finished one called Echo that was quite good. Um, Echo is a more story-driven game, but it has one of the most unique mechanics I've ever met that you could kind of figure out just from the title of it, in that the enemies learn from you and echo your moves and choices within scenarios.
Huh. It's an interesting game
So
mechanic.
so for example, if you walk into a room and there's, 30 enemies, they don't know how to pull a gun until you do.
Interesting. So it's one of so you have to like constantly be changing up your strategy, and like whatever you do, you then have to be ready to counter. That's interesting.
hmm
Okay.
And it's a very very neat premise with a very cool aesthetic that's a very space opera horror, like sort of focusing on the grand structures of alien beings kind of thing.
Okay. That's really interesting. Well, it sounds like an excellent time and something that I definitely hope people will go to your channel that I've posted there to see. If you want stuff
Thank
like
you.
that, be sure to check out GMStarson on Twitch. So, might as well dive right into things, and I'll be honest, I am the most curious about this, so I'm going to start right here. As far as both your design and potential lore, and we'll get into all that, but for right now, I just gotta know what inspired you to go with the avatar and the look and everything that you've gone with. I want to know what the thought process was. I want to know an origin story. Give me some good inspirations.
So I've got a very weird origin story to say the least, though it does bounce off a very familiar one that a lot of people have probably told, which is that when the plague years happened, I found myself with a lot of extra free time. But I had always beforehand every year done a charity stream for Extra Life, and it was always, I wasn't a streamer or anything. It was literally just a here's how we raise money, and we stream it live to prove that we did it for the people that were sponsoring us.
Huh.
But we couldn't do it that year for obvious reasons. And I was just really upset that here was this one, this good thing I did every year, and that was something I wasn't going to be able to do either. And then I happened upon two news stories in pretty rapid succession about a certain Melody and a certain Iron Mouse.
Right.
And And I openly admit my first VTuber exposure was actually Melody. And so I just had a sort of that shock moment of, oh, you can do literally anything with this if you want. And then I saw Iron Mouse talking about her struggles, and I'm like, oh, this is perfect. I have to do this. Oh, but what am I gonna do, right? I can't, like, I run these tabletop games for my friends for these streams, but they're not child friendly or anything. So I want to do something fun, but I don't want to be like, I don't want to give people the wrong impression, right?
Right.
And so I'm looking over my stuff and I'm like, no, I got it. I got it. I'm just a cute little octopi, and Starson version 1 was born from that.
Nice.
And if you look on my Twitch, my profile pic for Twitch actually is the original 1.0 Starson, which was possibly even derpier and cuter than this version.
If it's an accurate portrayal, he does give off very friend energy.
And so I literally scampered around to some artist friends I knew at the time and went, hey, uh, can I ask a huge favor? And this is just for some weird thing I'm throwing together, pretty please. And talked to a rigger who needed to do a quick resume builder, and threw it all together for the stream. Raised probably more money than I certainly expected to, particularly considering the year. Nothing astounding, but a couple $100 for charity is a couple $100 for charity.
True.
And I thought it'd be one and done, but I ended up having just so much fun that I couldn't stop. So what sorry, I'm kind of going off a little off track because I want to show you the frame of mind that I was in when I was creating this version of myself.
Don't you dare apologize.
I'm
fascinated. Please continue.
So the deal is that I specifically wanted to be a tentacle monster because I have, for many, many years, been sort of a sex education advocate. And I actually have a degree in psychology with a focus on relationships and human sexuality. So I've always been mouthing off about this topic at every convention I've been to, for the past 2 decades, give or take. Yikes. And so I'm going, okay, I'm doing a charity thing for kids. But I don't want anybody mistaking what I'm about. What is the most me thing I could possibly think of that I can portray in a way that wouldn't scare off somebody who doesn't know what it is?
Very true.
And for me, that's where I came up with Starson, is the Consentacle, because I am friend, I am more than happy to pat you on the head with all my tentacles, and if that's all you want, that is all there needs to be, and you do not need to question further unless you want that forbidden knowledge.
Very true to form there. And honestly, if I may, I really like the design you ended up going with, because I think it does manage to walk that razor thin line between child friendly and like more adult content. It's given the whole like illithid dungeon master aesthetic you've got going. No, it's not necessarily specifically what you are, but that's kind of what I see from, as an outsider. And I think it does an excellent job communicating, oh, this is child friendly enough because it's a cute little monster that people can, relate to. But anybody in the know, I think you did a fantastic job there.
Thank you. I actually do have a 3.0 form that is in the works. Unfortunately, due to life circumstances, there's going to be a bit of a delay, but I did get my some of that back, and I'm very excited. But I was very careful with them, and I'm explaining I need to keep this general face. This tentacly face cannot go.
Very understandable. This is the brand image. We can't fuck with the brand image.
But now I will have bottom tentacles, as in like the lower
Ooh.
half of my body.
Okay, okay. I hope you use them responsibly.
Absolutely not. But that's okay.
I mean, given the fact that you brand yourself as the Consentacle Tentacle Monster, I can only assume that your whole thing is using them responsibly, and frankly, we stand.
This is true. Um, the I do love just saying Consentacle Frientacle Tentacle Monster over and over again. It is just fun to say.
It does roll off the tongue quite well.
But yeah, no, I am very big on the defining and establishing communication of consent, particularly as a creator who likes to talk about these sort of subject. I feel it's particularly important for me to be clear about where I stand and what I feel is appropriate and inappropriate for, for that line, because I mean, gestures at everybody at YouTube.
Very true, yeah.
So, so yeah, I love tentacle monsters, and like I said, I gave literal speeches at panels at conventions about tentacle monsters and the history of tentacles. And so combine that with my love of GMing and the culty stuff, and also the fact that I, shocker of all shocks, I'm a Lovecraft and old school horror fan for the Eldritchian horror. Though I will say Lovecraft doesn't deserve all the credit. There were lots of other great authors. Just saying.
Fair. Remind me to come back to that then.
But yeah, so I think that just about covers all the primary inspirations. Though, was just sort of taking all the things I love, mixing them in a pot and stirring, and this is what bubbled up.
You love to see it. I think that's the perfect way to get started with something, right? Well,
Yeah, that's
yeah. Well, with Lovecraft not being the only inspiration out there, do you have any major recommendations for other authors or general works that people could turn to if they wanted more of that style, but wanted beyond just Lovecraft's work specifically?
okay. So I'm my big thing that I'm gonna pitch is maybe a little bit sideways for people who might not get it, but I promise them it makes sense if you get into the books. Clive Barker, anything Clive Barker. You
Clive
need
Barker.
if you might know him better as the guy who wrote Hellraiser.
Huh. Okay.
So Clive Barker wrote many an amazing novel, and they are all books about things beyond human understanding, but instead of the sort of tentacly version that Lovecraft went, he went more of a queer BDSM club route.
Ah, okay. Okay. So in more the Greek route, I see.
Yeah, a little bit, a
A little
little
bit.
bit. It is, it is. Clive Barker is one of those guys who is emblematic of the uh, if you can't tell the difference between, or if someone isn't confused about whether your porn is horror or your horror is porn, you're not working at it hard enough.
it's a good it's a good yardstick to use, I think. I'm confused about what I'm reading, but I'm somehow oddly terrified and aroused. At that point, you've done
Yep.
your job. Well,
Yeah,
fair enough.
and that's where all the stuff out of Hellraiser that everybody loves, the Cenobites that are operating on a not an evil aspect, but on a just completely alien dynamic. Um, and also he does spend a lot of time highlighting the concepts of, being trapped in pleasure versus trapped in pain. And there's even a wonderful novel he has that basically follows a random demon just as he uh, stumbles his way through a uh, um, planar spanning uh, war is not quite the right word, but we'll go with it.
Conflict?
Conflict, yes. Conflict's a good word because it's a lot of we're supposed to be fighting because that's what we are and that's what we have to be, and this is what it is.
Huh. Fair enough. So Clive Barker, if anybody's interested in more of that style of fiction. Fair enough. So you
And if
mentioned. Go ahead.
oops, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no. Please continue.
Well, I was just thinking I'm blanking on the name, so give me just a second, but there's the King in Yellow books were not, or the first references to King in Yellow were not Lovecraft. They were part of sort of a general story, and there are some good King in Yellow stories that were not done by Lovecraft, but I'm blanking right now on who the author is, so I'll come back to it if I think of it.
Fair enough. I've heard of the King in Yellow. I've heard that they're a good place to go for like more cerebrally, existentially kind of. I don't think it was described as horror to me. It was described as more like just kind of a cerebral romp in a way.
Oh,
But
Chambers, Robert Chambers, that was the name.
there you go. Some more recommendations.
Yeah, Robert Chambers wrote the King in Yellow, which most people miss. It's not actually a person; it's a play.
Right.
And so he's the one who came up with the, hey, here's this play that is so beautiful and intense that just reading it will drive you mad because you've now been exposed to pure perfect art and nothing else will ever be the same.
Huh. I mean, isn't that the goal of every artist? But
Well, a little bit of madness.
that's how you make great work.
Yes, I do believe it was the Conan author who wrote some great Lovecraftian works as well.
Huh. What a resume. I wrote Conan and also some Lovecraftian horror.
Actually, did you know that Conan is set in a Lovecraftian universe?
I did not. That's fascinating.
Yeah, if you actually read into it, and you get into all those weird lore nitty-gritties, there's a whole bunch of references to elder gods and things that basically imply that that's why the world Conan lives in is so fucked up.
Huh. That makes sense to me. Fair enough. Well, that is.
Yep.
Go ahead. Terribly sorry.
No, I was just saying, yep.
All right. Well, that is absolutely fascinating, and you've given everybody quite a bit of reading material, hopefully. Make sure you do your homework, everyone. So that was your inspirations, and you mentioned there were some charity streams you were into. Out of curiosity, what made you decide to start doing those? Like, less the specific branding that you have now and more content creation in general. What kind of got you into this whole sphere of streaming and doing charity streams and all that stuff?
Well, so I was only doing the charity streams because I was literally streaming that once a year for that. Are you familiar with the Extra Life 24 hours for gaming concept?
It sounds vaguely familiar, but I live under a rock, so I don't think so.
So I'll do the pitch here. So there is a charity called Extra Life that attempts to get funds for kids with cancer and other extreme medical conditions. And how they raise this funding is gamers do challenges, and in particular, every year they do a 24-hour challenge where gamers will pick something and attempt to do it for 24 hours plus straight.
Okay.
And I would run a D&D game every year for 24 hours.
Oh, Lord.
And we would set up a camera to stream it online so that, because we were getting sponsors and stuff, people would be like, okay, we'll donate this much money if you make it the whole time, or, like the jogathons and things
Right.
for charity. And so, so we set up the camera just to do that and to stream that. And then when I made sort of the pivot to VTubing is when I started going, this is a lot of fun. Like, this is just a blast to hop on and be my squiddy self and play games and hang out with people and create and make stuff. And, I just let the ADHD go burr after that point, I suppose.
That is fair. It do be doing that. All right, fair enough. Do you have any, as far as your current content goes and like your current stream and whatnot, do you have any long-term goals or plans where you want to be eventually?
Well, I mean, like I said, sort of a short-term, long-term, as I am working on that 3.0 upgrade. So,
True.
as soon as I can make that a reality, I'm going to be excited to reveal that.
I look forward to seeing it.
Longer term, I do, of course, would love to reach the point where this is just what I do all day. But, that's every streamer's dream, I suppose.
True.
Mostly, I'm just looking to have fun and cause a little bit of chaos and hopefully justify it by having enough people that have enjoyed and gotten happiness out of my streams and out of my silliness to, because that's sorry, I'm gonna get a little what's the word I'm looking for?
A little sappy.
Yeah, a little sappy is that even if I never made another dime from streaming, I would still keep streaming, because even if I have one fan who I make their day a little bit better by seeing me on their screen doing my thing, that's worth it. It really is. It's all I need is just that one person that this face showing up in this voice is a improvement on their day. And so long as I can keep bringing that forward, that's all I want. Would I like that to be to a lot more people? Sure, who wouldn't? You don't become a streamer without having a little bit of a, enjoyment of the spotlight.
Very true.
But, that is what brings me the most happiness out of this, is just knowing that I'm making people smile and knowing that I'm making people laugh, and also that people are thinking hard about, topics that are important to them and things that they maybe didn't, pay as much attention to before.
Very true. That is why we do what we do. But I'm glad to hear. Um, terribly sorry. I don't know where my brain is today. I cannot speak. I'm so sorry. It's been a very rough day.
It's all right.
It's been a long week.
It's okay. But, trust me, I get it. I've had a awful week, so
it really be like that. So moving from the future to the past for a minute, if you don't mind me asking, can I get a little bit of history about where you were sort of before the charity streams, before Starson existed, kind of what you were doing before all this?
Well, I can, but I you're about to learn some terrible, horrible knowledge, so beware.
Uh-oh. Well, if it's something you don't want to talk about, you're more than welcome to tell me.
No. It's important. It's important that I always tell the truth, and that is that I used to be an even greater evil, a corporate employee.
Dun dun dun.
I worked for a major bank for about a decade, and I did customer service and mortgages and home equities.
Oof.
And so when people are like, yeah, what did you do before content creation? I'm like, well, let's see. I worked corporate for 10 years, and then when I left that, when I was trapped inside, I went insane and became a tentacle monster on the internet. So do your own math on how that was on my mental health.
As one does. That's what happens when you work corporate for so many years, folks. You go insane and become a tentacle monster. Oh boy.
Yeah, no, and I've done some other work since then and bounced around here and there, but I'm very much in that sort of space of I corporate culture broke me and I ain't going back. So finding someplace else has been a trick, but we'll get there.
That is such a mood, though. So you mentioned that you don't currently do this full time, and thank God you've escaped corporate America. But if you don't do this full time right now, do you mind if I ask what you do now, outside of like for a living?
Well, so I'm sorry.
I don't want to get
I
too
was
personal,
full.
but
Excuse me. So I guess for lack of a better way of putting it, I kind of am full time for the moment again. Uh,
fair enough.
but I said it's been a rough week.
I'm very sorry to hear.
No worries. If you couldn't figure out the implication, yes, I do have some extra time on my hands now because work didn't work. Uh,
That's fair.
s- so instead of going on about that job, I will instead just go on about my, I do things like I do writing. I can freelance write just about anything you want story wise, as well as research on demand. I also do voice recordings for just about anything folks want, um, as well as just general research guy to pick brain of, which occasionally I guess they call it consulting.
I was gonna say, so you're like a sort of self-appointed consultant. Okay,
Yeah, that's a fair way to put it. Is it's a you know is people if whether that be about academic stuff or that be something a little more uh, straightforward, like I get pulled for conventions, for example, to be somebody who helps out with the game rooms and things like that and stuff like that.
fair enough. I definitely hope that that's working out for you for now, and ultimately, if you are looking for work, I hope you find more work. But I mean,
Well,
ultimately, I hope that
I
your goals take off. But
well, as I tell people, I'm too stubborn to be kept down for long. So,
that's a good mindset to have. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never going to keep me down.
yep,
So,
yep, yep.
but fair enough. Well, in that case, I might as well go ahead and ask. Since you do have a little bit of free time on your hands, are you particularly? What are your interests right now? What kind of hobbies are you into? What do you do in your free time?
Well, so my free time is a lot of trying to come up with ways to support the streaming right now, or those sort of freelancy style jobs like writing. I do have a couple of stories and books that I'm working on that I try and get a few words typed into. Um, I also love everything to do with Pathfinder and TTRPGs, so I end up running a couple of games a week for people who need a GM, and it's a blast.
Fair enough.
Other than that, video games, books. I'm almost always listening to one of my. I'm currently reading through the He Who Fights Monsters series. If you're a fan of lit RPG.
Ooh, I've not had much of an opportunity to be a part of it, but I'm fascinated. The title is very
Yeah,
evocative.
so lit RPG is kind of a variation on what anime fans might think of as sort of the standard isekai setting, where you're dropped into a world where the world functions on semi RPG video gamey rules.
Ah, okay.
So, lit RPGs or literary RPGs are ones where there is a full world going on. There's a full story, but there is some sort of implication of that same uh, video game esque structure to the world.
Interesting. Okay.
So in He Who Fights Monsters, a guy wakes up in a new world and has a quest system pop up in front of him, basically saying, "Hey, if you don't want to die, you should go find pants."
That's a. I was going to say that's an oddly specific quest, but frankly, if I woke up and had no pants, that would be my goal too. So
Yep. It literally starts out with find pants, find shirt, find shoes.
that is how you get started. Whatever quest you're going on, that should be how it starts.
And oh yes, also if you're a fan of audiobooks, the reader does an amazing job of capturing Jason's Australian accent.
Fair enough. Lovely, lovely. All right.
Australian accents are nice. What can I say?
Oh, absolutely. My boyfriend is gaga over them. That's why he's so infatuated with Sniper TF2. I'm sorry, darling. I did not mean to call you out. However,
I mean, but Sniper from TF2 though.
right? Exactly. I'm glad he has a kindred spirit.
Listen, there's nothing wrong with like a man who can kill you without a second thought.
That is true. That is true. And he can do that very easily. So aside from being star, I guess this can fall under the purview of being Starson as well. But aside from your streams and yeah, I remember you mentioned something in DMs that you can talk about if you want. Is there anything aside from streaming that you are currently known for or attempting to be known for? Anything else you want to break into?
Well, I am trying to work on putting together some video essays and things. I released one recently on the Lollipop Chainsaw remaster and my opinions on it because I am a die-hard Lollipop Chainsaw fan. So, when the remake came out, I had to voice my opinion. I also did a longer piece that's a little bit more academic on taboo fiction and how its effect on the human psyche. Um, and that one I'm proud of the content, but the editing needs some work.
Fair.
um, did I mention something else besides that, or sorry, I'm having a moment.
To me, I think you just mentioned the video essays. Though, if there is anything else, you're welcome to
Yeah,
bring it up.
yes. No, I think it's mostly, the video essays I do want to do more of, but I am not very much of an editor, so that is partially where I'm getting tripped up on. But it'll come. I'll learn eventually.
So you're a kindred spirit with me too. Editing is hell.
It really is.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. So other than that, I would love to set up some more live play games for RPGs. I've got a couple that have kind of been sitting on the back burner until people are actually available for it that I'm excited to start and try. But, like I said, those are back burner until people are actually available for it.
Fair enough. Do you mind if I ask for a little bit more detail on some of those? Because who knows, maybe I can clear up part of my schedule.
Certainly. Well, so I have so I've got well, okay, let's be honest, three different game setups that I want to run through. The first one is a pretty straightforward. I want to start holding a Pathfinder Society live game just every other week. Have folks come on who are willing to do a Pathfinder Society approved game sesh and just run a game live for everybody.
Okay.
I think that'd be a lot of fun to have tubers come on with their characters all pre-set up and ready to go, and that way if they can't be there every week, there's no big deal. They'll just come back when they get the chance.
Fair.
I also want to run people through a bit of a mega dungeon that I created at one point involving some particularly nasty, horrific monsters that I've set up. I've actually tried to run people through this 2 or 3 times now. I think the farthest anyone has gotten was 6 or 7 bosses out of the 13 in. So
Okay.
I would like to make another attempt at that. Um, and then last but not least, I was a bit known for running a spicy live game a while back, and I would love the chance to run another spicy live game with actors and actresses who are available for those kind of things.
Now, when you say spicy,
So the game was called Virtual Angels, and it was a big long acronym that was complete nonsense for the silliness of it. And it was sort of a Charlie's Angels setup. The home office calls in emergency support, and oh darn, on the
oh, uh-oh. Discord.
of Lusgal, who affected them with terrible magic that will distract them at inconvenient moments, as
Excuse me,
controlled by the
Starson.
chat.
I sincerely
hmm
apologize. Discord appears to have had a brief stroke. It might have also been my internet. Could you repeat that last thing for me? We cut off for a second.
um, so the gimmick is that the heroines were hit with a horrible spell that would cause them to be distracted at inconvenient times, which would then be controlled by the audience. And any distractions that were visited upon our players happen to their characters in game.
Huh. Okay. So when you say distractions,
I do indeed mean those that are supported by a lovely third-party app.
okay, fair enough. That sounds like a lot of
And
fun, actually.
oh, it was a blast. And I gotta admit, I really had fun leaning into the villains. Like, everyone was a bad pun. That was the gimmick, is that everybody was a horrible pun, and even the more, deadly and dangerous villains were just, you know, so goofy on the one hand.
Hell
I
yeah.
think Diamond Heart had to be one of my favorites.
There is nothing funnier to me than a really well committed to running gag.
Yep. Everybody was a bad pun. Mass and Sad were a villainous pair that could emit pain and absorb pain.
Huh. That's actually a real. Those sound like comic book villains. That's like a really cool and unique concept.
Yep. Well, and that was what I try to do. Even when I do my silly stuff, I try to make sure that it's a full and complete story.
You'll love to hear it. I'm glad that worked. I'm assuming it worked out for you in the past.
Oh, it was wonderful. We had a great time. It just, after, I think we ran it for a full year before schedules stopped lining up because people had to, one person like changed hemispheres. And
Yeah,
so,
life tends to do that, unfortunately.
unfortunately, but it was such a fun concept, and it was so much fun. I'd love to revisit it with another setup sometime.
Yeah,
But
if you ever
that
do,
one's even harder to pull together than the others.
that is true. Well, if you ever are attempting to really get that going, DM me because I would love to be a part of something for any of those. Honestly, that all sounds like a lot of fun.
Awesome. I'll keep you on the short list.
Excellent. I'll probably end up. Also, real quick, I need to remember to write you down on my list of people I want to hire to voice act something when I eventually get to a project like that. So,
Ooh, thank you. Most appreciated.
not to say that it'll ever actually happen, but that is the goal. So,
The intent is there, and that's all I need.
exactly.
We've already covered. I'm very praise driven.
That is fair. Well, if I may, then you do have you have what I consider, what would I call this? I don't want to say talk show voice. You have YouTuber with good voice. Does that make sense? You have
Well, 20 years ago, people were saying I had a radio voice, so I feel yeah.
that's the word I'm looking for. Yes, you absolutely have radio voice. You have the kind of voice that people would listen to on YouTube and go, "I want this person to voice over my life." That's the kind of voice you have.
That is what I hope to give. Is I want that tone when I talk, that it's not, because okay, this is one of those things that I'm sorry if I insult somebody's favorite streamer when I say this, but I hate it when people are just being screechy for the sake of it. I would much rather that you be able to sit through an entire conversation with me.
That's such a mood, though. No, fully agree. No argument here.
Like and that's one of the things that when I first started out, as I noticed, I picked up several people who were following me explicitly because they're like, you play a horror game and you don't scream into my ear every time something moves.
True.
Like,
That's definitely
yes, no,
appealing.
and yes, no, I am a horror gamer, so I am not terrified of random jump scares and things. The game's got to actually work for it to spook me.
That is true. Well, not to inject any of my personal stuff into your interview, but since you are into horrors, do you mind if I make a recommendation?
Oh, please do.
Have you heard of The Witch's House?
The Witch's House.
And it's at this
I
point that anybody in
don't
my
think
audience is
so.
collectively rolling their eyes. So, I have been a fan of what I call them pixel horror games. I used to call them RPG Maker horror games, but now they're a bit more fleshed out than just from RPG Maker, so they're pixel horror games. And they are
Hmm.
little top-down adventure games, essentially. They're point and clicks, more or less, that because they have a very Super Nintendo style pixel aesthetic most of the time, they can't really rely on raw graphical horsepower to do their jump scares, to do their like scares in general,
Hmm.
which means they have to rely purely on atmosphere, music, sound design, and mood. And let me tell you, they do such an amazing job. If you're ever looking for new good horror experiences that I would absolutely love to watch a blind playthrough of, by the way, The Witch's House and Ebe would be my two like go-tos. And if you like those two, I have so many to show you.
Oh goodness.
But
I definitely understand that. Yeah, I recognize that style. I immediately think of fly I think it's Fly to the Moon. Fly Me to the Moon.
that sounds vaguely familiar. And if I remember the screenshots that I've
It's
seen
not
of that game, yes.
so it's not horror, but it is a emotionally devastating tale that will destroy anything you have resembling a heart and crush it upon the ground. And it does so through, the RPG Maker story graphics. And I'm like, yeah, this was excellently done. Thank you. I didn't know my heartstrings could be twisted that way.
Fair enough. That's something that I've always been impressed by RPG Maker creators in general is they because they have such limited tools to work with, they have to supplement it with like raw storytelling and atmosphere and god, the ones that are good are so good. But
I think sorry, just a random thing, but it's kind of like how the old pixel graphics, like people don't realize that pixel graphics weren't clean, they were smeared, and the artists designed their pixel graphics with that intentionally, and that's part of what makes, you know, these sort of things so beautiful is that they take the restrictions of the medium they're telling the story in and creating something new out of it.
absolutely. Um Funnily enough, I think this actually counts now that I'm broadening the scope to just pixel horror instead of just RPG Maker. Have you heard of Faith or the Faith series?
Oh yes, I
Okay,
have
I
played
figured
through
you would
Fate.
have. Yes,
So good.
that's a good analog for what I'm talking about. But also, did you like Faith? Because I watched a YouTube playthrough of it and could not get through it. It was too scary. Did you like
Oh,
it
I
though?
loved Faith. Faith was just, Faith not trying to be braggadocious or anything, but Fate was a nice cup of tea and a charming stroll.
Oh, that's how horror you are. Gotcha.
Yeah. My, my thing with Faith was going, "Oh, wow, look at the rotoscoping of the pixel art. That was beautifully done." Meanwhile, my audience is going, "Oh my god."
Yeah, it was too scary for me.
Yeah, I have yet to find a game that's too scary to play, and I would happily challenge people if they actually found one to give it to me, but I have yet to encounter it. I've played some good ones, don't get me wrong, but I've never found one that was too scary, that's for sure.
Fair enough. Well, if you do take my recommendations, they're definitely not going to scare the pants off you, but they're absolutely worth it for all of the other reasons. But
Definitely. No, I totally understand.
my apologies for harping on it. I just, kind of go nuts when I get ooh, I want to talk about these. I like this subgenre. I want more people to play them. So I apologize.
Hyper focus go burr.
Exactly. Yes, yes, more. Get more people. But
Trust me, I do get it. I just so I got so before I was as comfortable talking about the sex ed stuff as I am, I talked about horror stuff more. Uh, and that's kind of where that spawned. It was during my studies way back in college. I was using horror and villains as sort of my reference point for some of my studies, and to the point that I was doing. I built my own genre system because I feel the horror genre system is inadequate. so
okay.
So when someone's like, this movie'll wreck, I'm probably like, I watched that 3 times so I could write a paper about it.
There you go. Do you mind if I?
Like, oh yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, please continue.
I was just gonna say, I was thinking of The Audition as one that people told me over and over again would disturb me, and I'm like, eh.
Fair enough. I was going to ask if you don't mind. I don't think I fully understand what you mean by what was it you said, redoing or reframing the horror genre or something? Do you mind if I ask a little bit more about what you meant by that?
Yeah. So, I was inspired by Stephen King in his book Dance Macabre. He talks about the 3 levels of horror, right? Um, Revulsion, horror, and terror. And he uses these to describe the various levels of fear that we experience while engaging with a story. But I kind of noticed as I was doing more work on horror films and horror genre stuff that we just sort of lump everything that generates fear under the same broad painting of horror. But like, do you really intend to tell me that Jason X and Don't Let the Right One In and both count as the same genre? You know? And so you have these. So I attempted, and I tried to push it for a while, but I was one academic doing silly stuff at cons, so never really caught on. But I was trying to create genre listings based upon the fear generated, whether that be generated of body horror, existential horror, um, fear of fear of the other, etc. I think I had 8 different categories that I had them split down into. Sorry if I haven't referenced this in a while.
No,
But it was generally the idea that I felt that horror as a genre was doing itself a disservice by being so broad as to not let people know what they were in for when they were trying to get it. And I feel that horror could be much more approachable if we let people understand what kind of fear they were signing up for before they got into it.
that is such a profound idea, and oddly for some reason validating to kind of hear. I've never been too big on horror myself, but I think if we implemented a system like that, it'd probably be a lot. You're absolutely right. It'd be a lot easier to get into because the labeling would be much more accurate.
Yeah, and I mean, like, again, I'm kind of an extreme example. I love horror of all stripes, but there are certain kinds of horror that I don't enjoy just because they don't hit for me. So I don't bother with them, And in that same token, I don't want to go, oh, yeah, you should totally watch. It'd be like, I'm trying to think of a good example, but like, we have romance movies and we have rom-coms, right? But imagine if there were no rom-coms and it just everybody sorted everything that had to do with a romantic relationship under romance.
It's a
Like,
good comparison.
of course people would bounce off it if they were going for romance and got rom-coms, or vice versa.
Yeah. Although you could argue that the
And
same kind of thing happens with comedy, I think, because comedy is such a broad umbrella, and I can't think of
oh, definitely.
any subgenres under that necessarily.
Well, I think that comedy subgenres basically just break down to either, you know, raunchy comedy, live comedy, improv comedy.
True. Yeah. Those are not helpful categories, though.
Exactly. Uh, but yeah, so with horror, I wanted to kind of have Stephen King's quick reference guide, but for genre. Um, and I think my biggest one that I was just like, because it's body horror is usually the one that really either people love it or hate it. They either can't stand it or they adore it, and that's one of those ones where it you want to warn people because if they're not expecting it, you may hit them the wrong way.
True.
Which again kind of comes back to the consenticle thing, is I want people to be informed before I drop things on them.
Which is definitely a laudable goal. I've been holding
Mm-hmm.
myself back from asking this, but now you've opened the body horror can of worms, so now I have to ask: have you seen The Substance?
Yes, I have. It was amazing. Such a great film.
Oh Lord, don't let Danny hear you say that. um,
uh,
I definitely
I
see
mean,
why people
it was art house trauma. What do you expect?
valid, and I definitely saw. He made me watch it. He made a lot of people watch it, and I definitely understand why it got the reviews it did. I definitely see why people like it. I'm kind of with him though. It's just not my thing. Um, but
Oh yeah, I loved it, but I also love crazy, ridiculous body horror and that kind of nonsense mixed with art house expectations and review of, you know, our idea. But that kind of highlights my point, is that why the hell is that and I saw the TV gloats technically in the same category?
true.
Like there's no.
Actually, while we're on this subject of horror and categories, let me snooze the ad break so I can ask you about this. Thoughts on Skinamarink?
Skinamarink.
I love the reaction your model had to
Skinamarink
hearing
is,
that title. It's like I awoken something within you.
well, because Skinamarink, it does a very good job of what it's trying to do, which is invoke that sort of found YouTube analog horror thing that we had going on. That's very, but it's a it's very good at creating that creepy setup and that creepy vibe, and it's just
If it helps, you can just be honest. I don't care. I'm not a horror person and haven't seen it. I was just. I
no,
know it's a
no,
contentious enough film. I
it's a
wanted your
very
opinion.
it's a very well loved film, and it's just not very interesting to me, is I guess what it breaks down to, is that it's a lot of 5-minute ideas that I felt could have been a fun creepy pasta, not a whole movie.
That's so fair, though.
And maybe I'm just too, you know, too speedy, ADHD, need my 3-act structure pilled or whatever, but I just was kind of on it, because, you know,
The
I don't
subgenre
know.
of
I give
analog horror could have had a better introduction than Skinamarink in a way.
Yes, thank you. I and actually, here's that maybe highlights my problem with it. And this is going to sound a little weird, but it feels like it was made by someone who expects the greater populace to have watched Marble Hornets.
Huh. That's a perspective I haven't heard yet.
So, but what I mean by that is that all the we use a storytelling language when we do film, right? And sorry, I'm getting way too in the weeds here, so forgive me. But
Oh, please do.
we use the storytelling language, and that comes with a lot of shorthands, like, you know, and again, particularly in horror, there's a reason why we have certain audio stings that we just know shit's going to go down, to the point that directors can set up a jump scare with an audio sting because you know something's supposed to happen on that audio sting.
Right.
And analog horror uses a lot of that same visual language, which includes long shots on non-moving things where someone's very carefully moving something, to create that background image creepy weirdness, or um, the shots that are like in purposefully weird, I don't want to say weird angles, but they're angles to imply that something's been dropped or moved. And like, again, that's a storytelling device that's supposed to let us know things, but if you're not coming from the perspective of, you know, analog YouTube horror video made, I don't feel like a lot of those hit.
It feels like a lot of analog horror tropes were built out of that like YouTube mindset of not even being low budget, but out of like making things out of what you had, like the lowest possible budget. Like, especially when you think of
And
things like, what was it, Mandela Catalog and whatnot. As far as I'm aware, those weren't
mhm,
made with like budgets and like casts and crews or anything. This was somebody who was just filming
nope,
what they could film and just throwing it in editing software. And
yep,
analog horror in general, I think, kind of pulls from just that idea of like these long, creepy shots of still objects with barely any movement in the background. I think that's effective because they do that, like it's what they have to do, so they have to make it effective. And
it's
holy,
a capturing of the liminal space that's really powerful, and it works particularly well. And this is something that I feel is kind of for lack of, okay, so the YouTube video format, particularly pre our current short form algorithm where everything's focused on, maximum clicks, minimum watch. Back when we were trying to get people to watch as long of a video as possible, there was an extra level of tension with those long pieces because you never knew if someone was just milking it or not.
true.
So you'd have a long still shot, and you'd be like, okay, are they just hanging on? And no, I see something. Wait, no, that was just leaf in the background. Oh no, this is just a stupid shot that they're leaving on. Oh crap, I missed that thing on the right the whole time. Damn.
Mm-hmm.
So, it worked because it played on the expectations of the setup. But I don't know if that translates as well into movies, or at least it didn't for me.
I fully agree. That makes perfect sense. Also, not to cut the conversation short, but Twitch is hounding me
Mhm.
for an ad break. I have plenty more questions, actually. So, do you mind if we go ahead and flip to BRB real quick? Just let that play, and then we can continue on from there?
Yeah, stretch the old tentacles, refill my water. Sounds like a good moment.
Absolutely, yes. In that case, everybody, thank you all so much for being here, and we will be right back, maybe 4 or 5 minutes. Remember not to go anywhere, and once again, I'll be reposting Starson's socials, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. All right, and we're back. Thank you all so much for waiting. We'll go ahead and make sure the music is
Hey,
paused.
hey.
There we go. Yes, yes. I hope everybody has relieved themselves and drank plenty of water so that after the interview they'll then have to relieve themselves again. Uh, so, did you have a whole lot else to say on the whole horror thing, or do you mind if we go ahead and move on to the next topic?
No, we're good.
Fair enough. But that is all
I mean,
very
I could chat
fascinating.
for literal months on horror, so we better stop me now while we're ahead.
That's fair. I mean, if you have any closing thoughts, please do feel free to like share. But
No, I think my only closing thoughts is horror people are weirdos, which is why we're awesome. So, it fits with the whole brand.
100% agree. No arguments here. So, going back to content creation for a bit, um, one of the big questions I like to ask is, so ever since getting into this a bit more seriously, I know you did some more charity streams before, and were, I don't know how active you were in
Mhm.
terms of like social media and online presence there, but ever since more seriously,
Basically non-existence.
that is fair. Well, then, ever since GMStarson has become a more serious thing and something that you do regularly, has anything particularly surprised you or caught you off guard since like really getting into this kind of thing, or do you feel like you've really been ready for anything so far?
I'm going to be 100% honest that I think the biggest shock has been where I get pushback from, for lack of a better way of putting it.
Really?
Like I expected a certain level of weirdness from being the tentacle monster, but it always surprises me when it's folks who will go on and on and on about anything goes, but then they're like, just, I'm like, oh, come on now.
We've been talking about this other stuff for so long, and now this.
Yeah, and so my point being is that I think that it will always strike me now that I'm doing content creation more firmly is there is an understanding that you are a brand to some extent. Like there is an image people know of you, right? And how you care and take care of or fail to take care of that says a lot about who you are as a creator and a person. Now, you might hear me say that and you think, oh, of course, everybody wants their brand to look good. And I'm like, no, 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 no. I'm talking about what actions you take behind the scenes to protect and care for that brand.
True.
Because different people behave very differently about that. And that shocked me coming into it is I did not expect to see the level of and it's kind of on both extremes. I've seen extremes where somebody's gone out of their way to hold to their principles no matter what, even if it's going to completely wreck them to do it. But I've also seen people chuck their everything that might can be considered a principle or a duty under the bus because it'll help them protect their image.
Huh. So, in summary, you've met a lot of fake ass bitches. Is kind of what I'm hearing.
Well, yes, but also that I kind of want to be upfront though is that we're creators. We're all fake. You only know the vision that I present to you. Nobody in my life knows the true me, especially not people on the internet. And so when people are like, "Oh, I've met with tons of fake people," and it's like, "Of course you have. Tons of people are fake. What do they do with that fakery, though? That's more what I'm concerned about. Are they fake because they're spending all day trying to keep a smile on their face, even though everything's depressive and awful? Hello, you've just met Robin Williams.
Yeah, true.
They're or are you someone who, even though the world is kicking you down and there's nothing left, you put on that brave face and step up and say, no, fuck it, I'm going. Like that kind of thing I can admire. And even when people put on that kind of face, they may be struggling incredibly behind the scenes. But somebody might also take that same struggle and that same pain and turn it into oh no, everything is perfect and happy and peppy, and anybody who tries to say otherwise is a blight that must be removed. There is no sadness in Bossing Say.
Yeah. Fair
So
enough.
yeah, I do like to delineate between those two because there is a level of fakery that just comes with being a performer. Like you're an actor, you pretend to be other things.
Very true. Very true. Well, fair enough. Um, all right. So, being a VTuber, right? This is generally my VTuber. We're getting into the VTuber specific question, and the question I normally ask is: are there any similarities between your model and what you look like IRL? Now, give me a minute to rephrase that in a way that applies to you, unless you're going to say, no, this is just what I look like IRL, in which case we're going to have a whole different conversation. Um,
Well, What would you say if I said that at least some parts of this were modeled off of me IRL?
That is exactly what I was going to ask. Is first of all, well, I have two questions, I guess. First, I was wondering what in general inspired you to go with this specific look. I know that you explained your reasoning for why a tentacle monster in general, but now I'm curious about, if the robe design has any significance, if the pendant has any significance, if your color choice is significant at all. And I guess on top of that, my second question would be: was anything informed by what you look like IRL? Are there any similarities between Starson and the person behind them?
Well, so the cloak is because I adore purple, as well as the fact that it's a royal color and it is used historically for occultish things for that particular purpose, and I do appreciate that. And let's face it, gold trim is good looking. Uh,
Absolutely. We stand.
I, I attempt to be a fashion forward cephalopod. Um, and My star design is, and this is something that's just a little quirk of me, is that everything about me is in odds. I particular, you'll notice that my star is a seven pointed star, and seven is a numerology number that is aligned with perfection.
Okay.
And it is the idea of attempting to become the full whole self.
Okay.
And so with that, and of course, I just love the dark green look because ocean, dark depths, greens and blues are my favorite secondary color
It's very
besides purple.
classic.
Um, and So probably the thing that most people get a giggle of is that I am a fuzzy person IRL, and you can't see my mouth in real life either.
That is so fair, though. Okay. I like that detail.
Um, I have a big long face that matches about where my tentacles land on my outfit.
So we can still expect to see them. They'll just be brown and fuzzy instead of like slick and slimy.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Fair enough.
Uh,
I did notice, having to stare at your model for as long as I have, that you do have more face tentacles on one side than the other. And now that you say that everything is in odds, that makes sense now. Um, the
yep.
it no longer bugs me.
Oh, you should have seen it originally on an attempt. There was like a little tiny curl on the end, just as the artist called it her OCD trigger that she included, just because it made her angry. And I'm like, you know what? I appreciate the effort putting in, but let's remove that because it's making me annoyed too.
Fair enough. I don't know. I think I would have loved to see it.
It's cute, but it's just there's only so much cranking on people's OCD I'm willing to do at a time.
Very true. That's fair. I'm sure everybody appreciates the efforts to not, basically. But okay,
Well,
I'm wigging out.
my point on that is anything that should cause someone actual distress levels, I should probably be able to toggle on and off.
Very true. I mean, hey, I would have liked to see it, so a toggle would have been nice, but I don't know. Um, Also, I really do like the star pendant specifically. The symbol in general, I like the meaning behind it. The pendant specifically looks like something out of Power Rangers, and I'm here for it.
I did love Power Rangers, don't get me wrong, so I am here for that.
Hell yeah! All
Though to
right,
be fair, Ivan Ooze was probably in my same realm.
fair enough. Fair enough. On that subject, while we're talking about the VTuber, you've gone into the history behind you streaming and a little bit of the person. Now, can I ask for a bit of the lore behind Starson, the character? A bit of where he came from and what he do?
Certainly. So, as mentioned, I am Starson, the Consentacle Frientacle Tentacle Monster. I was not always so. I once was just a regular old tentacle monster. I existed amongst the realities and devoured anything I came across that bothered me.
Ah, yes, true Eldrazi style.
Oh yes, the Eldrazi's are great friends, second cousins actually. Anyways,
I love it. Oh, I love it so much.
so I was doing my thing. I crawled into this dimension, and uh, so you humanoids don't realize this, but all of you give off this energy. Most of the time, it was always a spiky, not particularly tasty energy. When I had crushed and devoured the beings before. Um, However, I happened upon this one, and instead of spiky, unhappy energy, I got this really wonderful, tasty energy. And just it completely shifted my perspective on this entire reality. And apparently, I found out later that this person did not have the visual acuity to tell what I am. And so just was happy to be engaged with somebody with the ability to touch in multiple places. And
Ah,
I
okay.
learned some things after that. And then, so I got a start at a studio in Japan, and so now I'm here.
Ah, okay. All right. So that question I asked on Blue Sky was like canon. Gotcha.
Canon, yes, I am. I am the Consentacle Monster, and as people know, it is much easier to have a scene with an axe murderer when you don't have an actual axe murderer for the scene. You know,
That is very
sometimes you
true.
want a horrific, horrible monster that will devour all and forcibly do terrible, horrible things to unsuspecting, people in schoolgirl outfits, and want someone who can say, "Yeah, sure, I'll sign that. I'm okay with this."
Somebody who at the end of the shoot will like grab the towel and, say, all right, I'll be in my trailer rather than continue the scene.
Yes, and the whole promising not to eat the director earned me a lot of brownie points.
I'm sure that helped, yes. Now I'm not sure if I should feel safe or disappointed that you're on the other side of that screen there, away from me. Huh.
Well, I always say, remember, I am a summonable monster. All it takes is a quick shout of my name and maybe a present or two, and I can pop right on over.
Uh-huh. I will how much longer are we when it was the camera turning off? I'll keep that in mind. Anyways. But all right, that's
For those who
absolutely
don't know
fascinating.
and are interested in seeing photo shoots of me with other VTubers of exactly that.
Hmm. Mental note. Mental note. So, so
Oh, did you not realize that that wasn't a joke either?
oh no, I didn't. I did. I'm well aware. You have mentioned. Would you like to go into detail
Sorry.
or
Sure. I mean, just what it is. I do photo shoots with other VTubers whenever I get the chance. We have an artist draw up our interaction as a VTuber summons me to the studio for some fun times. It's great artwork.
you mentioned a particular website or was that a joke?
The particular website is correct, but Twitch rules I don't think I'm technically allowed to say.
Oh, well, it's a good thing I've been dancing around it then. Never mind. All right, fair enough.
uh, the blue site. Everybody knows which one we're talking about.
Ah, yes. Blue Sky. Sorry, I couldn't resist.
Yes, absolutely, blue sky. That's what we're talking about,
That is
Kafka.
definitely, yes, absolutely. All right, moving swiftly on. um, all right, well, what a note to. I say what a note to end on. Not necessarily the end, because I do have one last question that I tend to save for, like, being the last. I've run out of prepared questions at this point, but I do have one that I usually save till the end. It is the more somber of the questions, so not to move away from the fun topics, but I am curious. So,
Certainly.
either since your content creation journey started or perhaps before that, do you think you have changed or grown a lot as a person? And if so, if you don't mind sharing, may I ask how you think?
Yeah, sure. I think I have. I think I give a lot less of a fuck than I used to. And I mean that
Fair.
in the best possible way. I think when I was first starting out, I was much more concerned with a lot of that, imagery and things like that I was talking about, and then sort of running face first into the problems of those behaviors and things like that taught me some valuable lessons. And I want to think that has taught me to be more embracing of everyone, no matter their weirdness, no matter their, you know, uh, no matter what they are, even if they're a monster.
Fair. What is a monster but a
um,
physical description? The true monsters are those who are just dicks.
and that's kind of my point, is that, monster is a thing, but it's mostly ascribing, from somebody else. I describe myself as a monster because I am a scary thing or a loving thing, but that is completely up to you.
Very true. Wise words. Very wise words. All right. Well, I think I have reached the end of my prepared question list. Thank you so much for being here. Before we go, do you have anything you would like to bring up or talk about while you're here? You have the floor.
Well, I guess so long as I have the floor, I might as well pitch my stuff. If you want to come around, I'm live midday most days, and Monday specifically for Monster Mondays in the evening. Always trying out new horrors and indies and whatever else folks decide to ask me to check out. I also do on other sites, Church of the Tentacle on Sundays, in which I spend the day showing off amazing games that I'm not allowed to show on Twitch and other places. So I try and keep those records on hand for if anybody's curious about them later.
Fair enough. Well, definitely not in my chat, but if you want links, be sure to hit up Starson at various platforms and see if he'll give them to you.
And yeah, that's about all I've got at the moment. And I guess that I will be doing my collaboration with my collab team, the Disaster Gaze, later tonight. So if you want to come see that, come see that.
Oh, absolutely. Well, make sure, I think all of your socials are still fresh in chat there, so make sure you go give Starson a follow so you can go see what's going on with that. And if that's about all, I think we're good. I don't have anything else. Once again, thank you all so much for coming, and be sure to go give GMStarson a follow everywhere. I believe you are GMStarson both on Twitch and YouTube, and on Bsky you have the absolutely amazing handle of tentacle.gay, which is by far the single greatest Bsky handle I've ever heard.
Thank you very much.
Oh, we actually have a question from the audience. For both of us, does what you're doing here make you happy when you remember that you all do it? I think I understood that question. Do you want to go first?
Thanks, Plum.
Also, yes, Plum, thank you for the question.
But yeah, it's it makes me happy to do this work, this entertainment. I wouldn't do it if it wasn't fun.
Very true. For me, streaming gives me life. Like, I don't even know what else to say. I'm like, I was sad before I started streaming, and then I started streaming, and now I'm happy. And you're right, it is complicated, but for me, it really kind of is that simple. I stopped streaming for a while and got sad again, and then I started again, and now I'm happy again. So, obviously I agree with Starson in the whole, I want to entertain and bring joy and bring smiles and all that good stuff, but really I do this because it makes me feel good. It just feels nice to do, Mm-hmm. So,
well, whether or not altruism is true is a thing for philosophy majors to argue over.
Very true. And I mean, I always like to believe that something can be selfish and selfless at the same time, You can do something for you can do something for selfish reasons, but if it benefits people, then it's not a selfish act, if that makes sense. At least in my opinion.
100%. I agree.
All right, so I think that is actually it this time. Once again, make sure you go follow Starson everywhere. Also, I'm Hedron Fairy everywhere. You can find me anywhere you want as well. Starson, thank you so much for coming on and being an absolutely wonderful guest. I cannot wait to see what kind of projects you come up with and the various things that you do.
Well, thank you very much. I'm looking forward to seeing more from you as well.
Absolutely. Hopefully same time next week for another episode of Parting the Veil. And for now, thank you all so much for watching, and I will see y'all next time. Ciao for now.
Ciao.